Greetings, programs. Welcome to Rationality from AI to Zombies, Chapter 45, Truly Part of You. A classic paper by Drew McDermott, Artificial Intelligence Meets Natural Stupidity, criticized AI programs that would try to represent notions like happiness is a state of mind using a semantic network. And there's a small diagram here with state of mind and an arrow pointing to it, is a labelled on the arrow, and happiness at the other end of it. And of course there's nothing inside the happiness node. It's just a naked Lisp token with a suggestive English name. So McDermott says, a good test for the disciplined programmer is to try using gensims in key places and see if he still admires his system. For example, if state of mind is renamed G1073, then we would have is a happiness G0173, which looks much more dubious. Or as I would slightly rephrase the idea, if you substituted randomized symbols for all suggestive English names, you'd be completely unable to figure out what G1071, G1072, and G1073 meant. Was the AI program meant to represent hamburgers, apples, happiness? Who knows? If you delete the suggestive English names, they don't grow back. Suppose a physicist tells you that light is waves, and you believe the physicist. You now have a little network in your head that says, is a brackets light, waves. And if someone asks you, what is light made of? You will be able to say, waves. As McDermott says, the whole problem is getting the hearer to notice what it has been told. Not to understand, but to notice. Suppose that instead the physicist told you light is made of little curvy things, not true by the way, would you notice any difference of anticipated experience? How can you realize that you shouldn't trust your seeming knowledge that light is waves? One test you could apply is, could I regenerate this knowledge if it was somehow deleted from my mind? This is similar in spirit to scrambling the names of suggestively named Lisp tokens in your AI program, and seeing if someone else can figure out what they allegedly refer to. This is also similar in spirit to observing that an artificial arithmetician programmed to record and play back plus of 7, 6 equals 13 can't regenerate the knowledge if you delete it from memory until another human re-enters it in the database. Just as you forgot light is waves, you couldn't get back the knowledge except the same way you got the knowledge to begin with, by asking a physicist. You couldn't generate the knowledge for yourself the way that physicists originally generated it. The same experiences that lead us to formulate a belief, connect that belief to other knowledge and sensory input and motor input. If you see a beaver chewing a log, then you know that this thing that chews through logs looks like, and you'll be able to recognize it on future occasions, whether it is called a beaver or not. But if you acquire your beliefs about beavers by someone else telling you facts about beavers, you may not be able to recognize a beaver when you see one. This is the terrible danger of trying to tell an artificial intelligence facts that it could not learn itself. It is also the terrible danger of trying to tell someone about physics that they cannot verify for themselves. For what physicists mean by wave is not a little squiggly thing, but a purely mathematical concept. As Davidson observed, if you believe that beavers live in deserts, are pure white in colour and weigh 300 pounds when adult, then you do not have any beliefs about beavers, true or false. Your belief about beavers is not right enough to be wrong. You don't have enough experience to regenerate beliefs when they are deleted. Then you do not have enough experience to connect that belief to anything at all. Wittgenstein, a wheel that can be turned through nothing else moves with it is not part of the mechanism. Almost as soon as I started reading about AI, even before I read McDermott, I realized it would be a really good idea to always ask myself, how would I regenerate this knowledge if it were deleted from my mind? The deeper the deletion, the stricter the test. If all proofs of the Pythagorean theorem were deleted from my mind, could I reprove it? I think so. If all knowledge of the Pythagorean theorem were deleted from my mind, would I notice the Pythagorean theorem to reprove? That's harder to boast without putting it to the test. But if you handed me a right angle with sides of length 3 and 4 and told me the length of the hypotenuse is calculable, I think I would be able to calculate it if I still knew the rest of my math. But what about the notion of mathematical proof? If no one had ever told it to me, would I be able to reinvent that on the basis of other beliefs I possess? There was a time when humanity did not have such a concept. Someone must have invented it. What was it that they noticed? Would I notice if I saw something equally novel and equally important? Would I be able to think that far outside the box? How much of your knowledge could you regenerate? From how deep a deletion? It's not just a test to cast out insufficiently connected beliefs. It's a way of absorbing a fountain of knowledge, not just one fact. A shepherd builds a counting system that works by throwing a pebble into a bucket when a sheep leaves the fold, and taking a pebble out whenever a sheep returns. If you, the apprentice, do not understand the system, if it is magic that works for no apparent reason, then you will not know what to do if you accidentally drop an extra pebble into the bucket. That which you cannot make for yourself, you cannot remake when the situation calls for it. You cannot go back to the source, tweak one of the parameter settings, and regenerate the output without the source. If 2 plus 4 equals 6 is a brute fact unto you, then one of the elements changes into a 5. How are you to know that 2 plus 5 equals 7, when you were simply told that 2 plus 4 equals 6? If you see a small plant that drops a seed whenever a bird passes it, it will not occur to you that you can use this plant to partly automate the sheep counter. Though you learn something that the original maker would use to improve their invention, you can't go back to the source and recreate it. When you contain the source of a thought, that thought can change along with you as you acquire new knowledge and new skills. When you contain the source of a thought, it becomes truly part of you and grows along with you. Strive to make yourself the source of every thought worth thinking. If the thought originally came from outside, make sure it comes from inside as well. Continually ask yourself, how would I regenerate the thought if it were deleted? When you have an answer, imagine that knowledge being deleted as well, and when you find a fountain, see what else it can pour. Here ends chapter 45. Now for my thoughts. Right, so again, narrating diagrams or mathematics is annoying, but not too bad. I think how I would describe this section is something that those of us with good teachers were taught in school, and that is touched on here a bit. It's not enough to know that 2 plus 4 equals 6. You have to know why 2 plus 4 equals 6, so that if somebody hands you a different problem, you can use the same process but with different numbers. You have to understand the process, how the thing works, not just that if you do this, then that. You need to understand why. And this is something I have found to be very important in my life. And horrifyingly, I find that when I try to do it myself, I get bizarre and shocked looks from other people like, why would you even want to know that? For example, you go along to a new job and they show you a machine that's all covered in buttons, and they tell you that the only 3 buttons you need to care about are this one, which turns it on and off, this one, which makes the machine do the thing, and this other button, which finishes it. Okay, that's cool. Now you know how to operate the machine. But what are all the other buttons for? And the thing is, a large number of people, in fact, I would say the majority of people I've encountered, don't care, and they're not interested. As long as they know the 3 buttons to push, they don't care what the rest of them do. And that's fine. But what happens when something unexpected happens? What happens if the machine is some kind of processing machine and the hopper gets jammed? Which of the buttons do you need to push to stop it in an emergency? Which of the buttons do you need to push in order to get the hopper to open so you can unjam it? That kind of stuff. If you just stick with these 3 buttons I do this with and I don't need to know why and don't care, then if something unexpected happens, you can't do anything. You're just sat there helpless, waiting for somebody to come and rescue you. And frankly, that's not a feeling I enjoy. Also, it means you don't understand what you're doing and why. How can you be expected to find a better way, a more efficient way to do your job if you don't know what it is that you're doing? All you're really doing is loading the hopper, pressing button 1, pressing button 2, pressing button 3, and then you're done. Have you done a good job? How would you know? You don't know anything other than how to press the button. There may, in fact, be a smarter, better, or easier way to do all of this stuff, but you don't know because you've never even looked. I don't know about you, but I find that rather horrible to contemplate. Once you understand why the thing does what it does, and to some extent how it works, then you can find better ways and anticipate surprises, and when things go horribly wrong, you can avoid panicking or looking helpless or feeling helpless. This here is the same kind of thing, I believe, but from a more cerebral point of view. When you are trying to understand a mental process, if the data you have been given was wiped out, but you still had the basic process, could you put it all back together? If you understand it properly, yes you can. If you don't, then you are just in the position of the person who pushes buttons 1, 2, and 3 and has no clue as to why. And frankly, that's a little bit sad. At least in my estimation. Anyway, here ends chapter 45, and the end of this section. We have an interlude coming up next, which deals with completely different stuff, and then we're on to the new part of the book. That's all for this week. Bye for now.